Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got a full tank review for you of a Tier 9 Premium German medium tank. It is the Kampfpanzer Erich Konzept I, and this vehicle is basically a Leopard prototype that sacrifices a little bit of the alpha and a little bit of the turret armor. The Leopard prototype isn't really known for its turret armor, so if it's having to sacrifice that, yeah, you know this thing isn't going to have very good armor at all. But to be able to gain just decent mobility, really good gun handling, and better gun depression than you could have on a Leopard prototype. This vehicle is kind of the glass cannon reconnaissance sniper medium with really good penetration for a Tier 9 medium. It's an absolute banger of a tank, and today I'm going to be letting you know why. So stick around as I break down the statistics of this vehicle, compare it to two of the other competitive Tier 9 German mediums, and then follow it up with some gameplay. So I'm going to compare the Erich Konzept to the Leopard prototype and the Kampfpanzer 50T. Now keep in mind this is a premium tank unlike the other two, so it's going to make extra credits, so take that into account if it can get nearly as competitive as these other two tanks. Interestingly enough, the Erich Konzept has 120mm while the other two vehicles have 105, but while the Kampfpanzer's 105 deals 320, the Leopard prototype's 105 deals 420, meaning that even though this is has the higher caliber gun, it's actually got 20 less alpha damage than you would have on a Leopard prototype. Damage per minute wise, all of these vehicles are pretty much the same, with the Leopard prototype having a little bit of an advantage. One thing that sucks about the Erich Konzept, however, are the high explosive rounds. Only 60 pen for 515 alpha, while the Leopard prototype has 105 penetration, which really does trump the Erich Konzept. The Leopard prototype also edges this tank with regards to its shell velocity, although it still has decent shell velocity at 1,350, and while the Leopard prototype has 323mm of APCR pen, the Erich Konzept actually gets heat, which is useful for thinly armored surfaces that are angled up to 85 degrees, but it's not going to be nearly as good as those gold rounds on the Leopard prototype for punching through most surfaces unless you're at extreme distances. The Erich Konzept has fantastic standard penetration for a premium medium tank at 270, and it barely loses any pen over distance, only 10mm once you've traveled 500 meters with that tank. So these standard rounds, they're great, and I've used them most of the time, 90% of the time while I've been playing this tank. This vehicle also carries more than enough ammunition so you can take a variety of shells, but remember your HE aren't nearly as good as the Leopard, so you might not need to take quite so many of those. Gun handling wise, the Erich Konzept is fabulous. 2.2 seconds aim time, worse than the other two vehicles, but better accuracy at 0.3. That is a sniping medium vehicle, and the gun handling is way better, meaning that you do not need vert stabs on this tank unless you truly want to have legendary gun handling. Personally, I think a good midway point might be an experimental turbo on this vehicle, so you can really make use of that vehicle's engine power, as I'm going to discuss in a second, while just improving the gun handling a little bit. But the gun for me felt really nice when I was playing with it. To add on to this, the Erich Konzept has fantastic gun depression of 10 degrees. However, I'd like to highlight that it actually has really bad gun elevation of only 12 degrees. That could be really awkward from when your opponents are above you on a map like Mines. Mobility-wise, the Erich Konzept is fantastic. 65 forwards like the Leopard prototype, but has significantly better power to weight ratio, about 10% better, and better ground resistances on all terrains. That means that this thing is significantly faster than a Leopard prototype, and with the gun handling being better, you could get yourself a turbo or an experimental turbo on this tank, and then you could be truly fast enough to contest all of the early positions. So far you might be saying, wow, this basically looks like it's a Leopard prototype but better, right? Yeah, well, unfortunately some bad news happens when we take a look at the armor of this tank. Now it looks okay on the turret, right? 90 at the front compared to the Leopard's 52, but of course pales in comparison compared to the Kampfpanzer 50T. But 50 on the hull and 35 on the side, yeah, this thing's armor it's horrendous. It gets overmatched all on the upper plate by 120mm caliber guns. All 90mm caliber guns will overmatch the lower half of the hull. 106mm on the upper, on the side of the hull, and this turret is just absolutely horrendous. Even if you're using your 10 degrees of gun depression, it is just horrific. And it even has a big weak point on top, which means that while this tank does have quite a small forehead when you're peering over ridgelines, lines, there's not that much of a target for your opponents to shoot. Yeah, that weak point really does shine. And what I was talking about earlier with regards to the Leopard prototype's turret, I mean, the Leopard prototype's turret, if you are sitting in a hold down position, it's still okay. Look at these areas of the tank up here that are like 300 or an auto ricochet against AP rounds. You know, the Erich Konzept, that turret makes a Leopard look desirable. Also, that hull armor makes a Leopard look desirable as well, with that upper hull at 70 millimeters thick. So this thing, the glass cannon of glass cannons, also has 50 less hit points than the Leopard prototype, 100 less than the Kampfpanzer. It also has a weaker engine, but a tiny little better ammo rack. But what's really disappointing with this tank compared to the Leopard prototype or the Kampfpanzer is that it has way worse camo rating. Can you believe that the heavy medium tank in this regard, with that 250 frontal turret, 120 on the frontal hull armor, has literally a third better camo while moving than the Kampfpanzer 50T. This is one of the biggest issues of this tank, and you must have an exhaust if you want to be kind of comparable to other mediums of its tier. It definitely feels like it's more of a heavy medium, and probably because of that awful turret weakness on top. Luckily, however, this vehicle has fabulous 400 meters base view range, but its fire chance is actually higher than these other two vehicles, so you might even want to consider taking a fire extinguishing crew on your radio operator. So crew skills wise, what would I take on my Erich Konzept? Well, you'll be happy to know that this uses the default Leopard crew. So if you've got your Leopard, it will work perfectly inside this tank. On your commander, I'd recommend Brothers, Repairs, Concealment, Recon, Emergency, and Coordination for the radio operator skills on your commander, Situational Awareness, Firefighting because of that extra fire chance, and Jamming on this tank is what I will use. For my gunner, Brothers, Repairs, Concealment, Designated Target to keep your opponents lit up for longer. This can actually allow you to shoot them twice with the gun's reload, which is absolutely lovely. Deadeye to increase those crits and armor. If you really want to improve the gun handling, maybe take Snapshot and Concentration if you want to sit still, but I don't feel like this tank really needs it. It's accurate enough as it is. And I want to snap and pull back into cover because you're usually spotted with the vehicle's mediocre camo. For my driver, Brothers, Repairs, Concealment, Off-Road Driving, Engineer, and Smooth Ride. Don't need clutch braking or controlled impact on this tank unless you're an absolute mad lad, but do keep in mind that this vehicle only weighs 45 tons, so controlled impact might be a little bit bold. For my loader, I'm going to be taking Brothers, Repairs, Concealment, Intuition to switch between those APCR and the heat rounds, ammo tuning, and I'm going to take Perfect Charge because this is a sniping tank. However, keep in mind that this thing doesn't have the best of ammo racks, but it's not as bad as the Leopard is, so if you don't care about the shell velocity, take Safe Stowage instead. Equipment-wise on this tank, I love two builds on this tank, and it's been netting me some really good results. Firstly, I'm taking turbo, vents, and a gun rammer. This is my all-purpose, get the high damage out, get that accuracy with the vents, and still have a turbo to be able to contest positions. It also really helps with the vehicle's reverse speed, which is not ideal once you take the field mod to improve the vehicle's poor camo. For my second build on this tank, I'm going to be taking vents with a vision system and an exhaust. If you aren't using a premium consumable, you might actually have to drop the vents and use coated optics instead, but it would be a real shame to lose all of the firepower that the vents bring. With regards to experimental turbos, sure, go for it. If you can get a high-level experimental turbo on this tank, I think that'll work really good with vents and a gun rammer for an all-round build. Field mods-wise on this tank, I'm going to be improving the module durability, I'm going to be improving the accuracy of this tank, I'm going to be improving the camo rating of this tank, I'm going to be taking the scouting slot here so I can either slap my vents in there or I can slap my vision system in there depending on which build I'm going to use. And for the final field mod, I feel like the vehicle's accurate enough to be able to go for the reload time. However, if you find that the accuracy ends up really annoying you at that stage, you could go the other way. And your accuracy will go from 0.27 to 0.24, which is legendary, but you will have an extra half a second on your reload if you do that. Anyway, I think that's quite enough talking. Let's take this glass cannon sniping god onto the battlefield. So firstly, I'm going to be rolling out on Pilsen, and what I want to do on this map is take a scouting build, vents, vision system, exhaust, and this is going to hopefully allow me to be able to contest the early vision. Remember, this vehicle, it's fast, it's got a good top speed limit, it's got good engine power as well. So even without a turbo, this thing is able to get to the front quickly. There aren't very many faster mediums in the game. The only issue is that when you get there, you don't have an autoloader, you don't have the highest damage per minute, and you definitely don't have armor. And your camo rating if you aren't using an exhaust and you don't have the field mod to be able to improve it a little bit, will be very poor as well. Yeah, I really wouldn't recommend going round that way. I think my intrusive thoughts when I was on the press account kind of got the better of me there. And if I get caught out getting into position, well, I'm going to look like a bit of a dipstick, really. Nevertheless, let's see if the Erich Konzept is going to be able to make it safely. Tanks that could have got there faster, considering how badly I drove, would be a Char Future 4, a Lorraine could get there. The Alembic would be a little bit slower, so there's only really 2 tanks, the Char Future 4 and the Lorraine, that could get there. And oh, hello there, Mr. Lorraine. We're going to put 1 into them, and I'm just hoping that my team are going to blap them. They definitely do. That's 888 spotting for me, and 400 damage as well. So we're just going to chill for a little bit, reset our vision, and this is where a build of just the vision system exhaust is going to allow us to get forwards. And what I want you to see here is not only the scouting prowess that you can do with a build like this, I really want to highlight just how nice this gun feels in this replay. It's not going to all be about the scouting. I feel like I can sneak past there and push. Obviously this is a taller tank. That weak point will get you spotted, so be careful with making push plays like this. But I do feel that with the gun line behind me, I really want to try and punish my opponents as they try to escape. So it looks like the Alemba actually managed to spot me there, which is a little bit concerning if the 263 is going to be able to get a shell in. I'm thinking, should I chase him? Yeah, I should be able to. Unless they're using a turbo, there's no way they're going to be able to get away from me here. So we should be able to come around the corner and bam. And, oh man, this gun, it feels so good. Even without vert stabs, it feels wonderful. So for all of you out there who can't play without vert stabs, and there's no shame in that. It's definitely a valid way to be able to play. The gun handling on this tank will feel even better for you. So I tell you what doesn't feel very good. That's going around the corner in front of 2 Tier 9 tank destroyers. I feel like I was chasing the Alembic, almost as if it was a cat, you know, an alchemist's cat. And yeah, I suddenly got punished by Daddy there as I came around the corner. But hopefully, we're going to be able to hit their weak point. Beautiful stuff. And I had enough hit points to be able to take a shot from them, at least the vast majority of the time, so I could be a little bit chill. So yeah, you're seeing just how nice this gun feels. It just feels absolutely lovely. It really does. Oh, we're just hitting these shots. This is... It's why I love the Leopard at tier 10, and it's why the Leopard prototype also feels good at tier 9. But let's be honest, nobody really wants to play tanks that aren't premium these days. If you can be able to make some extra bonds, if you can be able to make some extra credits, why wouldn't you want to, right? And yeah, just hearing that Char has missed me. Good feeling as I come around the corner now. And this gun, man, it just feels good. It feels good. I wish it had like 420 alpha, considering it's 120mm. Having 120mm is barely an advantage over having 105. There are some 35mm plates, like on the side of this tank, that you can overmatch with 120 that you couldn't overmatch with 105. And there are also side plates on, for example, an STB-1 that are only 35mm thick that you'll be able to overmatch as well. And just look at this gun. Even with making the accuracy worse on this tank with the final field mod, which I feel is worth it because you can be able to get a little bit more damage in, it just feels absolutely gnarly. It really does. And while I'm going to probably fire a heat round here at the top of the Rambo turret to be able to give me a little bit of an advantage against his thin but well-angled armor, the work that you can do with the APCR rounds on this vehicle, yeah, man, it feels good. It feels really good. So I'm just hoping that Rambo isn't going to hit me, but even if he does, it's only going to be able to get me for 360, so that should still give me a 50-50 to survive. And oh, baby, all hits. We fired 11 shots this game. We hit 11 shots. We penned 11 shots. Well, that was the 11th, sorry. We penned 10 up until that point, where I can already hear the YouTube comments. Actually, QuickyBaby, you'd only fire 10. Luckily, I hit that 11th. Nice, cool, 5,100 combined game in a 5-minute round. That's going to be an easy 7 bonds for finishing top of the team. Easy 100,000 credits profit, because we didn't spam gold, and we didn't have to because of the wonderful APCR rounds on this tank. This vehicle feels good. So next up, we're rolling out on Redshire. We're going to be defending against an assault, and once again, I've elected to take the camera rating and the exhaust on this tank. The rate of fire on this vehicle is pretty interesting. With the gun rammer, you can get it down to about a 7-second reload. Without the gun rammer, 8.5, around about that kind of area. But remember, that the amount of time that you have to stay hidden in World of Tanks, even if you are taking the commander skill that reduces the amount of time that you're spotted, or the radio operator skill, I should say, that reduces the amount of time that you're spotted by a second, is you still have to stay hidden for at least 10, if not 11 seconds for everybody who has designated target. But remember, designated target can actually add an additional 5 seconds if they are using vents and they have a premium consumable as well. And just quickly, man, that's brutal. The IS-32 absolutely clubbed me there. Spoilers, that IS-32 is actually a 65% win rate player after I inspected them after this battle to see how they managed to get me. So, great player on the enemy team. We're going to have our work cut out for us with them doing some fabulous blind fires in the bush if they're going to be able to dig us out. So, as I was saying, if they have designated target with the directive as well, you can be spotted for up to 15 seconds in World of Tanks, even if they're not using a radio. But 99% of players aren't going to be using that directive. And so what it means is that in World of Tanks, you should expect to be spotted for against at least 70% of players for 9 seconds in this tank. For probably 30% of players who'll be using designated target, you'll be spotted for 11 seconds. So that means that I have to stay hidden, which is why a build like this does really well with effective damage per minute. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes you want to have the gun rammer, you want to absolutely rip against your opponents. And in those kind of situations, where you're kind of like fighting on Himmelsdorf or Ensk, or you're going for those all-in plays where you're just rushing to the front like you're on Mines or the Hill on Tundra, of course I'm going to take the turbo, I'm going to take the gun rammer. But for these kind of situations, where it's more important to be able to dig my opponents out with the vision system, and I have to hide for more than the difference that the gun rammer will make, then I'm not going to get the value there. What's the point of having like an 8-second reload on this tank if I have to hide for 11 seconds anyway? Unless, of course, I fall back and I don't get spotted, and then I can be able to plow that shot in. But without the exhaust, who knows, maybe I would have got spotted in that kind of a scenario. So what I'm trying to suggest is that with tanks like this that have decent alpha damage, 400 is decent alpha damage, if you can drop the gun rammer for these really bushy maps where you have to fall back between your shots anyway, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. However, definitely don't employ that tactic on maps where you really need to get the shells out. And in some situations, even on maps like this, you don't need to fall back anyway, right? You can be able to just really blaze your rounds against your opponents. This is where like a gun rammer would have great value in this kind of a scenario, right? So, the Kampfpanzer Erich Konzept. Man, this tank, I actually had a bit of a problem with it, boys and girls. My problem is that I won 13 games in a row. And because I have to have all of this gameplay off stream, I was there after 3 hours of just winning. I'm not going to tell you whether this game specifically was in the first 13 games or the few afterwards that I played. But it just left me with this kind of situation of thinking, is this tank really as good as I feel it is? Now, the thing is that it can't be any better than the Leopard prototype, really, right? You saw the statistics. You saw that the Leopard prototype, first damage that IS-32 has taken here, and I think they're actually a little bit too confident. As I said, this is a 65% win rate player coming in here, and I definitely wanted to punish them for that double shell that they got against me. And it looks like while they want to try and gun me down in the Erich Konzept, I'm not going to feed you, mate. I know he's aiming at me, so just die to my friends. I see they fire, come around the corner, through the upper hull. That's where the heat rounds on this tank are useful, very useful. You're going to go through the IS-32 hull a lot more than you probably would do with APCR, because it will be able to pen above that kind of like 70 degrees of angled armor. But then again, I think the IS-32 probably has thick enough armor that probably still wouldn't be the case. Anyway, look, QuickyBabs, get to it. What are you trying to say? Okay, what I'm trying to say is this tank, there's no way it's going to be better than the Leopard prototype. I'd say that the Leopard prototype is just as good in different ways. This vehicle has the better gun depression. This vehicle has the better mobility. But the Leopard prototype has the higher alpha, the better premium rounds, the better HE rounds, and it undoubtedly has the better turret armor. The thing is the Leopard prototype has 8 degrees of gun depression, right? This thing's got 10. So while the Leopard prototype does have that better turret armor, there are fewer situations where you can actually manage to make it work. What's absolutely diabolical in this game is that I think that I haven't actually taken any damage from what I've been spotting unless that Kalana managed to get me. I think the Udez blind-fired me, the IS-32 blind-fired me as well. I'm down to 276 hit points. I'm not happy about it at all. I'm going from bush to bush to try and extend the vision for my team. There's only 4 minutes left on this round. Come on, guys, get that shot in, get that shot in, get the Govika there. All right, well, I'll shoot the Govika. Ah, thank you. Nice one, Mr. SU-130 PM. And I always try to say thank you to players who have done me a favor in that kind of situation. Oh, a 1357. Man, I love this gun. This gun feels so good, boys and girls. It really does. I don't think there are any premiums in the game that really do feel like they have this single shot awesomeness. You can play like a Udez 3-3. You can play a Char Future 4, but the Char Future 4, it's not a premium tank, it's a reward tank. It's not making the extra credits. It's not making the bonds at tier 9 like this thing does. The Udez 3-3 has a very good gun as well, but 360 Alpha doesn't feel like 400. You could argue, well, the Udez 3-3, it has an autoloader. QuickyBaby can be able to deliver those 3 shells within, I believe, 6 seconds of the first shot, right? But you're having to expose yourself, and then you've got a large amount of downtime where you don't get to play. So for people out there who don't like to have downtime in their gameplay, this vehicle does feel more fun than the Udez 3-3. I'd say, however, it's not going to be as competitive as the Udez 3-3. The Udez 3-3 is a very competitive vehicle. This tank's going to be like a class below it. So if the Udez 3-3 is like A tier or S tier, this one will be a B tier or A tier. But it just feels good. It really does. And I think with a tank like this, it's not going to be your DZT meta kind of tank where you just rush in, you've got incredible turret armor, and you just grind your opponents out. But for these kind of maps, and maybe I just got really good map rotation, which is why I won 13 games in a row. For these kind of maps with a build like this, man, it just feels lovely. 10 degrees of gun depression, 120mm with 400 alpha, incredibly good accuracy on this gun. And the DPM kind of recovers a little bit. You could argue it will maybe leapfrog the Leopard prototype if the Leopard prototype doesn't want to sacrifice the 5% accuracy that this vehicle kind of can because it has better base accuracy. This thing's great. This will definitely be one of the tanks that I just go to for a little bit of fun. It's very different to a T-54D. If any of you have played that tier 9 German/pseudo-Soviet vehicle. But that tank's going to do better in a nice matchup. This vehicle will probably do better in a worse matchup, I'd say. Because if you don't have to depend on your armor like the T-54D does, and you just want to try and make that gun sing, yeah, it's definitely a different kind of playstyle. And such a vastly more enjoyable gun. I know, even though I'm not spotted. Looks like the artillery was gunning for the KV-4 and ended up missing the KV-4 and ended up hitting me. This is just a cracking result. We got ourselves another tasty 6,200 combined game in 9 minutes. And these last 2 battles, we've pretty much hit most of the shells. And that was something that just consistently kept happening in this tank. And so with this tank, I was kind of in a bit of a pickle. I played 13 games. I won all of them. I was doing like near enough 4K combined with like 1.8 kills per game. I never had an absolutely fantastic, incredible, amazing game. But I really hadn't had any stinkers with it either. So let's have one more for the road. I'm going to be rolling out once again with my scouting build on Muravanka. I was winning games in this tank where I was taking the gun rammer and the turbo build for where I was fighting on the city maps. But it should be obvious that a vehicle that gets to control vision and snipe is going to do way better on maps such as Muravanka and Redshire than it is going to do on your city maps. And let me clarify, the vehicle, it will struggle for anyone who doesn't know about their opponent's reloads and can't rely on their own marksmanship to make outplays against their opponents. For those players, they're going to do far better with like a T-54D. They're going to do far better with a plethora of other tier 9 medium tanks. DZT-159 for sure. Way, way, way easier. But oh my gosh, that gun, boys and girls. That gun on this tank. ELC even 90 dominated at the start of this battle, and that was the most important tank on the enemy team. And I was licking my lips with anticipation about what I can do with the rest of this battle now. Now, I have the vision system exhaust. I am the light tank, but I'm the light tank with the 120mm that hits for 400 alpha damage, right? That also has 270mm of penetration. Oh yeah, this is... But remember, this vehicle, its camo rating isn't perfect. I'm not trying to present this thing as the ultimate kind of like forward sneaky tank. Remember, it's got worse camo rating than a Leopard prototype and way worse camo rating than a Kampfpanzer. Talking about the Kampfpanzer, I should really highlight that this vehicle, it's not going to be like a new Kampfpanzer. The Kampfpanzer with its incredible armor, way better camo, just utter grinding capacity on that tank, absolutely dumps on this vehicle. However, for situations where you need the 10 degrees of gun depression, you want to have the higher alpha damage, you want to have that shell velocity, well, the same that it's got worse shell velocity than on the Kampfpanzer, but you want to have that kind of like accurate pokey gun. Yeah, this thing absolutely slaps. And just look, even without the vert stabs, this thing's gun, it just, oh, we can move with our shots. Oh, it's just lovely, lovely, lovely. It really is. I'm in love with this gun. You know, usually Uncle Scrubs like I like tanks with armor. I can play my snipers as well, for sure. But this vehicle, it really did kind of surprise me. Leopard prototype was never really my favorite medium tank inside the game. But this one, should we finish him here? I think we've got to finish him and just try and leg it and hope we don't take any damage there. But what? I don't get spotted because I shot him behind multiple trees. So, this vehicle, I'm trying to come to a conclusion here. I really like it. I don't think it's going to be overpowered. I don't think it's going to be toxic inside the game because it doesn't have an autoloader, it doesn't have crazy damage per minute, doesn't have crazy hull armor. It can't really go hull down against you. Nobody has a problem with a Leopard in the game, apart from Wargaming, apparently, because the Leopard's so popular. So I swear that lots of people play the Leopard, lots of people love the Leopard, but nobody has a problem with playing against Leopards. I don't think they make the game toxic. I have zero problem whatsoever with there being Leopards in the game. And I will have zero problem with there being tons of these vehicles inside the game as well. They're going to be easy for people who set their scouts up correctly to be able to dig out because they don't have the best of camo, but they'll be ruthless against players who don't set their tanks up correctly for maps like this with the vision system exhaust. It's going to be a juicy tank for everybody who has really big alpha damage guns because they're going to overmatch it with their large calibers. It'll be amazing for people who have HE, Cobras, go in and farm. Tessacks, go in and farm as well. You could probably get HE rounds through the side of this vehicle if you manage to hit it flat. You won't get HE rounds through the front reliably. All in all, it's just not going to be a very toxic tank to play against. And I'm really looking forward to this thing filling the matchmaker and also me playing it. But if you think that this thing has any kind of armor to be able to get out of trouble if you make a misplay and get greedy and drive out in front of a CS-59, it does not. This vehicle gets punished super hard. You saw in the 3 games that I showed today that we got brutalized by that IS-32. We got brutalized when we poked around the corner against the tier 9s, and we got brutalized on Muravanka in a game that I thought, oh, I'm going to go in and get like 10,000 combined. This is going to be the one for YouTube. And I was greedy. I was really greedy. I want to highlight with this tank, it's not the be-all, end-all. It's not some kind of new, amazing super medium that's going to drive around and just get the job done in all scenarios. But for any of you out there who like to have a little bit of a slower paced game, who like to focus on having a nice, reliable gun, and want to make some bonds and some credits at tier 9, it's a great tank. And the only thing that sucks is that you're going to have to gamble inside loot boxes to be able to get it. Really wish that this one was just available outside of them on an individual basis. However, look, don't buy loot boxes. There are 3 new tanks. You might have to end up getting 150 boxes even if you have all of the other vehicles to be able to get this tank. That really does suck. But I know for sure that this vehicle is not going to be overpowered, and it will be available in the future for money, or maybe even for gold, or maybe even in a few years we'll see it in the Bond store. And if that happens, I thoroughly recommend this tank, and I'm looking forward to putting it in my rotation. It's not going to replace my love of the Char Future 4. Char Future 4 absolutely smashes this tank just because it has that 405mm burst, and really fabulous heat rounds on the Char Future 4. However, this is going to be one of my new preferred tier 9 premium mediums for going in, making some credits, making some bonds, and having kind of like a nice, relaxed, mid-range game of World of Tanks. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was my review on the Kampfpanzer Erich Konzept I. Wow, what a mouthful. Really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know what you think about this tank in the comments down below. And make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, as I have 2 more tank reviews coming out over the next 2 days of the Cust and also of the WZ-111-6. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.